distance?
Vertical.
Vertical distance, and it's a elevation
Elevation.
of point C. And this would be the elevation of point A, and here would be the elevation of point B, right? So the elevation is a vertical line. Benchmark, what did we say a benchmark was?
It is a place where we know what the elevation is already.
That's right, so it's a
Permanent.
marker, right? A
Permanent.
benchmark is a permanent marker. It's something that's in the ground, it's permanent, and it says, and we know what the elevation is. And do you remember where I said the nearest benchmarks are in Cabrillo? One is on that side of Cabrillo, and the other one is on that side of Cabrillo. So any point of known elevation on the campus is not a benchmark. It's not a permanent marker, it's a temporary benchmark, right? Data we know, mean sea level we know. Vertical lines, these guys are vertical lines. So again, if we're looking at the whole scheme of the earth, this is really a horizontal line, and vertical lines are perpendicular to those circular lines. Horizontal line is perpendicular to the vertical. Level surface is really a curved surface. But again, we're dealing with plane surveying. A level line, it's a line in a level surface. So it's curved, but again, in our area, it would be horizontal. So let's take a look at I'm going to set up a level. I'm going to set up the tripod. And a slang word for a tripod are the legs. I'm going to set up a tripod. And I'm going to put a level here. Right, so this is a level. And it's shooting off to the left, and it's shooting off to the right. And I'm going to take this curve a little bit away, so it looks like it's actually just going up. And this is point B. So let's make assumption that we know what the elevation of point A is. So let's say that A is actually a benchmark. So A represents a benchmark. Okay? So if it's a benchmark, then we know what this elevation is. But point B is not a benchmark, and we don't know what it is, but it's on our construction site and we want to find it. So we set up a tripod about equidistant between the 2 points. Didn't we talk about trees? Yeah. You want to make sure that where you set it up, you're not going to be looking through a tree. Okay? And we're going to have a rod out here. So here's a rod. So one person is operating the level, the other person is keeping track of the data, and one person is holding a rod. And when I look back here, this is going to be called, do you remember the first week we looked at trigonometric leveling? You remember what that was called?
How to pull?
Rod reading.
Rod.
Rod, right? So this is a rod reading. And a rod looks like a huge ruler. And I'll bring one out. Okay? A rod reading. It's a huge ruler. And then I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to take a reading, and then I'm going to turn the level. So I'm going to look here at point A, and then I'm going to turn the level here and go to point B. And I'm going to have the person who is the person holding the rod move from point A to point B. And I'm going to check out here, and this is also called a rod reading. This is the rod reading at point B, and this is the rod reading at the benchmark. So this right here is a horizontal line, right? And what line on here is parallel to this line? The
Level.
level line, right? So if we know that those two lines are parallel, wouldn't you say that this vertical distance right here is equal to the vertical distance right here?
Yes.
Aren't they equal?
Yes.
Okay. Question. So if I know what the elevation is at point A, and I can measure the rod reading by looking through the level and reading the number off, and then I can get the rod reading at B by looking at the rod and measuring that, can I determine what the elevation of B is? How? What would the elevation of B be equal to? Okay, let's see. Let's try to do it chronologically. Okay, so what do we know first? Elevation A plus rod reading A and minus rod reading B. Right? Because this, I take elevation A and I add it to the rod reading at A, and then I subtract this, and don't I get the elevation of B?
Yes.
Okay. So this process is called differential leveling. Because really what you're doing is you're looking at the difference in elevation between the 2 points. What two values here could tell me what the difference in elevation is between the 2 points? The 2 rod readings. If I take this rod reading, and from it I subtract this rod reading, isn't this the difference in elevation between the 2 points? Let me do that again. This rod reading of A, of the benchmark, if I subtract from it the rod reading of B, I get this value right here, which is really the difference in elevation between the 2 points, right? This is the change in elevation, delta. I'm using change in elevation of 2 points. Okay. So if I know the elevation of a point, and I have a level and a rod, I could determine the elevation of any point. And we talked about there being a benchmark, north, south, east. We talked about a benchmark being east of campus and a benchmark being west of campus, right? So if I'm doing a construction site in the middle, I said that we have to come off one of the 2 benchmarks. So we would have to start, I would send the rod person to the benchmark. I'd send the rod person to the benchmark, and I'd set up my equipment somewhere between that benchmark and probably not the point where I want to survey because it's just too far away. I probably will have to do multiple. So let's say this is where my construction site is.